All right, today we're diving into the story of a man whose real life, well, it puts Hollywood Westerns to shame. We are talking about Bass Reeves, one of the most effective, most legendary, and most incredible lawmen in American history.
And look, when I say legendary, I'm not kidding. A lot of historians are pretty convinced he's the actual inspiration for one of the most iconic heroes ever, the Lone Ranger. But as you're about to see, the true story of Bass Reeves is way more compelling. So let's just start with the numbers, because these numbers built the legend.
Over a 32-year career as a Deputy U.S. Marshal, Bass Reeves arrested more than 3,000 outlaws. Just let that sink in for a minute. 3,000. You hear all about guys like Wyatt Earp or Bat Masterson. They weren't even playing in the same league. Not even close.
Now, in a job this dangerous, you know things are going to get violent. He killed 14 men in the line of duty. But here's the crucial part. Every single one of those shootings was ruled an act of self-defense. This wasn't a guy who shot first. He always preferred to bring him in alive. And then there's this stat. And honestly, this one just blows my mind. Despite staring down thousands of criminals, surviving who knows how many ambushes and assassination attempts, this is how many times Bass Reeves was wounded. 0. So how? How does a man born into slavery become the most feared and respected lawman on the American frontier? Well, his journey started in the absolute harshest of circumstances. But it was the frontier itself that would become his training ground. I mean, talk about a journey. He was born into slavery in 1838. Then, as a boy, he's moved to the Texas frontier, which is where he gets incredibly skilled with guns and horses. During the Civil War, he sees his chance, he escapes, and he makes his way into what was then called Indian Territory. And get this, just over 10 years later, that same man, a former slave, is appointed a Deputy U.S. Marshal. And that time he spent in Indian Territory? That was everything. He lived among the Seminole, Creek, and Cherokee peoples, learning their languages, their customs, and the land itself like the back of his hand. This wasn't just him laying low. It was like he was getting a PhD in survival and tracking. It gave him an edge that no other lawman could ever hope to have. So when he finally pinned on that badge, he wasn't just relying on his aim. Nope. He was relying on his brain. And he developed a set of methods that were, well, they were nothing short of brilliant. His approach was pure genius, really. 3 parts. First, the man was a chameleon. He'd dress up like a farmer, a cowboy, even a preacher to get close to his targets without them ever suspecting a thing. Second, and this is incredible, he couldn't read or write. So he had someone read him all the warrants and he memorized every single one, flawlessly. And third, look, he'd always rather outsmart you. But if cunning wasn't enough, he was a crack shot with both hands. Truly, a force to be reckoned with. There's this quote from someone who knew him back then, and it just perfectly captures his confidence. Can you picture that? He's got some outlaw cornered, and Reeves, this imposing figure who can't read a word, pulls the exact right piece of paper from a huge stack and just stares the guy down, daring him to say it's the wrong one. Amazing. And hey, the cold, hard data backs it all up. Over 3,000 arrests, 0 wounds sustained. His typical loadout? 2 Colt 45s, which he wore butt forward for a quick cross draw, and a Winchester rifle. These aren't just stats on a page. This is the resume of a man who had completely mastered his world. But you see, the thing about Bass Reeves, his legend isn't just built on arrests and gunfights. It's built on his character, on this deep, unwavering moral code. And man, was it tested. Believe it or not, he even ended up on the other side of the law himself. In 1887, he was actually put on trial for murdering his camp cook. Reeves swore it was a tragic accident, that his gun went off while he was cleaning it. In the end, the jury believed him and he was acquitted. It just proved that not even he was above the system he served. But that wasn't the ultimate test, not by a long shot. The true test came in 1902. A warrant was issued for a murderer, and the fugitive's name on that warrant was Benjamin "Benny" Reeves, Bass's own son. So when the warrant came down, the other marshals, they wouldn't touch it. They didn't want to be the ones to hand it to him. But Reeves insisted. He took the warrant himself, reportedly saying he'd bring his son in just like any other criminal. And then he did it. He tracked down his own son, arrested him, and brought him to justice. This act was so profound that people at the time were comparing him to, get this, The old Roman consul Brutus, the guy famous for ordering the execution of his own sons for the good of Rome. We're talking about a level of integrity that's almost mythic.
Okay, so let's jump ahead to the end of his career and see how this incredible story wraps up and how his legacy lives on today.
When Oklahoma became a state in 1907, Reeves was 67. You'd think he'd be ready to retire from federal service, and he did, but he wasn't done. He took a job as a city police officer in Muskogee, and for the 2 years he walked that beat, not a single crime was reported in his district. His reputation alone was the only police force they needed. And all of this brings us full circle. The parallels, they're just undeniable. A lawman hunting outlaws in Indian territory? Check. A master of disguise? Check. He partnered with a Native American posse man, rode a large white or gray horse, and he was known to hand out silver dollars as calling cards. It is just too close to the Lone Ranger story to be a coincidence. You know, the craziest part is that the real story of Bass Reeves was nearly forgotten, completely overshadowed by a fictional character he very likely inspired. It really makes you think, doesn't it? In a way that honors his favorite tactic. It makes you wonder, how many other real heroes does history still have in disguise, just waiting for us to uncover their stories?